Napa know-how.
The Napa guy knows not to judge a man by his car's multicolored paint job or absence of modern gadgetry. Who cares if it's technically old enough to vote and the windows are powered by the strength of your left arm? Your monthly payment is zero, and it'll stay that way. Because with over 500,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. She may not be pretty, but she's all yours. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning. You have reached Venus Unplugged. This is your host, Llorraine Neithardt, and what we do here in the paradigm shift of Venus, what we're looking at right now is the myth of Inanna, ancient myth of Babylonian. And Inanna is both the goddess of heaven and earth, and she is about to make a descent into the inner world to meet her dark sister Ereshkigal. So just to bring you up to snuff from the last time, it was the courtship of Inanna, and she also is then given her the laws, which she brings back to the cities. And those laws have to do with the right balance of laws. And then what happens? She finds her honey man, and that is the connection to meet with the beloved, which is also the symbol for fertilizing the lands in the sacred marriage. Now, as this obvious, she's a goddess, but she is also has all the human traits, which also makes it so much more interesting and so much more relatable. So during the beginning of the year, which was actually around what in the Western world is Easter time, was always the sacred marriage and then her descent into the underworld. All right. Now, between, there's this beautiful image of her and her beloved and her honey man, and it portrays the union of the goddess with her consort in the ritual of the sacred marriage. But beneath the nuptial bed is a scorpion, sacred to Inanna, which symbolizes her power to destroy life as well as give it. And then as you begin to realize that, at some point, somebody's going to get sacrificed. If it's an epic tale, you know somebody has to be sacrificed. And if you're living an epic tale called your life, something's going to get sacrificed, or someone. Hopefully it would be something you've outgrown. And we can sacrifice that which we no longer need, or that which we no longer kind of hold on to. I guess we need to be childlike and filled with delight, but not necessarily infantile. That doesn't work unless, of course, you're an infant, then it's very cool. So the poem that is central to the Sumerian race and people is the one of this beloved Inanna, all right, who is filled with a passion, a true passion for all things. And then after she begins to make her descent to the below. So as she begins to do that, and as the hymn continues, and after the marriage has been consummated, and the fertility of the land and the well-being of her people ensured, Inanna makes a second descent. Unlike the first, remember the first is when she comes from heaven to earth to participate in public ritual, and her second is from earth to the underworld in her personal journey for spiritual growth. So in this mythos, the feminine continues to grow in consciousness. It's not like, I'm the goddess and that's it. It's an ever-growing expansion, ever-growing consciousness, and ever-growing understanding. And in this case, she is going into the underworld and to learn about the land of the dead. And she is queen of heaven and earth, but she does not know the underworld. Her understanding of life is necessarily limited, because I guess heaven and earth is a big enough job. And then she begins to enter into this spiritual realm of the underworld, which is so fascinating because it is about the earth. It's about the humus. It's about the dark earth, the mystery of that, the mystery of the unknown, not the sky gods, not the ones up in heaven, but the ones that are deep beneath our feet and deep beneath what we call the collective unconscious. So basically, she's going into a shamanistic journey to meet her shadow self. So she has to give up her earthly powers. And her need to make the journey is compelling, but she's also obviously apprehensive. And she ain't no dummy, so before she makes this little journey, she brokers a deal with the God of Wisdom, just in case she's not back in 3 days. Somebody better come and get her. So what does this mean to the modern person? When we, get our spiritual consciousness and live our life and find the beloved, whatever or wherever that may be, have our children, do our work, although people are starting much quicker earlier now in terms of consciousness, at some point, life is either going to demand a descent. Now, that can come as a depression. You wake up one day and suddenly you just can't shake the mood, or there's a death. It could be the death of a love affair, the death of a person, a beloved animal, the death of a cherished idea. It could be the death of youthful beauty and turning into the beauty of wisdom. So there is always some type of death lurking around. We spend a lot of time avoiding that, which we can miss a great deal of wisdom and potential growth by wanting to keep the status quo. So in her descent to Ereshkigal, we can see this in many, many different ways. It is the ritual and fertilization of the earth, and then she becomes death and goes into the underworld, okay? But it's also a story of an initiation process into the mysteries, and every culture has their mysteries. And in the Western world, although it is not acknowledged enough, we have great mystery schools. And most people are interested in the Eastern mystery schools, but there's great mystery schools, and that is part of the whole of the wisdom of this earth, or what this earth can offer. And what, not just what we can take, but what we can give. How do we contribute to being on this earth, or becoming a human being? Just because we're born walking on two legs, that does not make us human. It is believed that it's an act of divinity. It's that journey into wisdom that gradually makes us human, or the potential of the divine in the human here on earth. So Inanna's path and its stages, as she's descending into the underworld, it's a life-enhancing descent. And she's discovering first the sacrifices of herself for a deep feminine wisdom and for atonement. She descends, she submits, and she dies. Now, this myth is 3,000 to 5,000 years before the Christian myth of the crucifixion. So, this is the lineage of the matriarch. And the matriarch and the patriarch are terms of evolution. They don't have to be warring principles. They can be principles of evolution. And then when we integrate them, which is what 21st century is about, what those two forces, those two paths, those two developmental stages, when they come together, when they weave together, when they become lovers, and the matriarch and the patriarch become lovers to one another, what can they bring to one another? What can be the third, what's called transcendent function? That doesn't mean we're going to swirl our way up into heaven. A transcendent function just means the marriage of the opposites. Now, when the only way there can be a marriage of the opposites or a union of the opposites is by equal powers. So this is, let's say, above and below, or male and female. And remember, the honey man is man. She integrates with a human being. So Inanna is showing us the way. How do we descend into the abyss of the dark goddess? Kind of what's the etiquette? You better know your laws, and you better know your etiquette in anything in life. You're going to travel to another country, study their etiquette. See what that's about. Being able to be respectful, because we can make terrible faux pas and not even realize it. And it's one of the reasons we travel, to see otherness, to experience otherness. So this is a traveling into the underworld, and even the ways of the underworld are perfect, which is what they keep on telling her every time they remove one of her earthly powers. Now, her experience, you need to understand this openness, and we need to have an openness. And what she's acting upon, essence of the experience of the human soul faced with the transpersonal. So this journey is not based, nor is her myth based on passivity. But it's an active willingness to receive shadow and light. So this process of initiation is in this esoteric and mystical tradition of the West, involves exploring different modes, levels, consciousness, and rediscovering the experience of unity with nature and the cosmos that is lost through the old directed development. So when the lights are out and we're journeying into the underworld, sometimes it happens in dreams, and as I said, sometimes it can happen in moods or necessary depressions. Psyche will give us a depression and to protect us from inflation. You know, you were high yesterday, you went to a workshop, now you're like super dude cool, beyond measure, and the next day you wake up and can't remember a damn thing, and you're just back to being your funky human self, which can be depressing if we're not ready for it. That's psyche protecting us. It says, no. And it's not that it doesn't want you to have your evolution, but it doesn't. You haven't really earned it yet. It takes a lot of work. And the work is basically the ebb and flow of conscious from unconscious, this constant awareness So much of what we don't know about ourselves is what's really running the show. So in the depths, as she goes into this cosmic power within the earth, that's when we're taught a great deal of intensity and what it takes to live in a balanced life. So any spiritual gain or any gain in consciousness is always a loss to the ego. So it's like rowing around with one oar. We're going around and around and around and don't understand that the ego really believes it's God or runs the show. That's what the midlife crisis is about. Suddenly, through omission or commission, bidden or unbidden, you're going to realize, wow, I'm imperfect, I'm a human being, and what I have the right to do is to develop that potential wisdom. So the myth is also a description of a pattern of also for psychological health for the feminine, both in women and in men. So it provides this model, so to speak, of incarnation, of ascension, of the rhythm of the healthy soul, and also the process of healing, this ebb and this flow, or if you've ever done a detox, or even just wanted to change a habit that, once worked and now is becoming destructive. We go through a healing crisis. The toxicity comes up, and whether the toxicity is physically, mentally, emotionally, from the soul, Inanna's descent is viewed as a path, as a way that we can descend. Because we need to let go of the powers that we think we have, and certainly that we've earned. They'll be there. They're waiting for you. It can't be totally taken away. But if we're going into a different realm, it's like no guns at the dinner table. Sorry. Nobody's allowed to shoot one another during dinner. That's etiquette. And there's ways of shooting people by insulting them or being rude or subject matters that are upsetting to some people. No. That place, that exchange at the dinner table is for nourishment, not argument. So that's part of what etiquette is about. How can we stay connected? And it's also an orientation into a remembrance of making these descents, or how our planet right now is passing through this amazing phase. And it's in many ways returning to the remembrance of the earth, of its dark mysteries, of the descent, and the remembrance of what has been lost to our culture, of these energies and these symbols. So now, Ereshkigal, on the other hand, the dark sister of Inanna, she is queen of the underworld, and she is mourning her husband's death. So as Inanna goes deeper and deeper, it's a journey, as I said, into the underworld. The sister's not so interested in seeing her. She's actually quite frustrated. But remember now, Inanna is also the evening star. and she kind of holds court at the time of the new moon, to hear the gods' petition and to be celebrated with music and feasting and staged and battles, and she claims the me, which is the ordering principle, and its potentials, its talents, its rights of the civilized upper world. And as judge, she holds court to decree fate and to trample disobedience. So she symbolizes the capacity to evaluate periodically and make new, and she changes with the changing process, as we need to change with the changing process, as Inanna needs to change with the process. Very often, when there's a great desire, whether it be accomplishment, whatever it might be, there can be great disappointments. Because we need to refine what we're up to. It's not just like, gee, I want this, or I want to accomplish that. It's what are we willing to do and be? Let's just say that it's love. Are we willing to give up our or transform our kind of girlish fantasies that some other person was born to make us happy? That's pretty prevalent in our culture. No, your happiness is the one that you work on within your own self. And you share, and you hopefully are in relationship with friends and people and family members who bring out the best, because some people that just bring out the best in you, and there are other people that do not bring out the best in you. So you stay away from the people that don't bring out the best in you. Or if you have to be around them, let's say it's a boss or something, then just say, okay, this person is my shadow provoker. I can use this situation because I can then see what I don't know about myself. There can be killer fantasies, or that, or we can get so insulted, or we can get terrified of another's envy, or we can suddenly realize our own jealousies are envies because this person does not bring out the bestness. It is our dark sister, Ereshkigal. Use it. Don't abuse it, and don't project it back out. You're being given a gift. It doesn't exactly feel like a gift, but it is a gift, because it's like 1,000 years of therapy just talking to this person for 5 minutes, because so much stuff comes up. It's like, wow, amazing how just another human being who happens to mirror. Now, that doesn't mean you're exactly like that person. It means that person may have qualities that you fear you have, or somewhere in the depths of your being that's floating around inside of you too. Then, rather than projection, and actually projection is the only way we're going to know about ourselves. That's why we have it. I know that's a hard thing to accept, but that's what it's about. Something suddenly comes up. And that's also the golden shadow, too. You can see somebody that's so marvelous. They're just beyond human. Well, that's your divinity that you're having them wear. And sometimes we need that. Sometimes a person needs to hold the gold that is in us, because we can't carry it ourselves. It's too much. We don't know how to use it. We don't know what its purpose is. We don't know anything. So we give it to whomever to hold that wisdom or genius or anger or delight. People will constantly project their own passions and their own sexuality onto an image that has nothing to do with them. Gee, if I will only look like this, that, or the other, according to some faux magazine, you're projecting your sexuality, your passion. You're giving that stranger all you got, girl. No, you don't do that. You hold it. It's yours. Because it's not what you're wearing. It's who you are. It's the life force, the libido, the energy that is Venus itself, is Eros itself. Eros is what keeps the cosmos together and alive. This loving, related principle that's not based on whether we're good or not. It's based on its own dynamic energy. So this goddess, this Inanna, who obviously is the goddess of sexual love too, and she sings these ecstatic songs, and she adorns herself, and she's filled with desire and delights in lovemaking openly, feeling that openly, knowing that every cell in your body is alive, and that sweetens life and who we are. And Inanna tends to be a little more extroverted than the Grecian Venus, or Aphrodite, actually. Venus is Roman. Because she craves and she takes and she desires and she destroys. And then she gives desire from within. But then she claims her need in a very assertive way, and she celebrates her body in song. When was the last time you celebrated your body in song? Great way to start the day. Celebrating your body in song and delight. The ancients say, before we had language, we sang. Everything was sung. So think on that one a little bit. And her receptivity is action. She's not passive. She's not, I'll stand here and one day you'll love me. She's like, no, you will love me because I will be in your face because I am here and I am the principle of that. So as a daughter of the gods, she knows it. That's the beauty. Inanna knows she's Inanna. She knows she's queen of heaven and earth. And she also knows what she doesn't know, which is the underworld. And she knows in order for her to be whole, in order for her to truly be, in a sense, a complete goddess, all right, a triple goddess, Mother Virgin Crone, she must meet a part of herself or a part of the cycle of life that she knows nothing of. So it's pretty extraordinary. That she has this need, that she knows that it's right. So she leaves Honeyman on the throne to take over her kingdom as she makes her descent. And as she makes her descent, she has to go through the 7 gates, just like Sigmund had to go through the 7 gates. Sigmund is the thirsty goddess in Egyptian mythology. So next week we are going to cover Arushka Gal and her traits and wisdom and what this symbolizes. So she's queen of the dead, and her name means Lady of the Great Place Below. And she lives in this somewhat alien place, and certainly was outside the patriarchal consciousness. And she was, when she was on the upper world, she was a grain goddess. So you see, these goddesses and gods evolve and travel to different places and become more of who they are. So the myth of Ereshkigal and the qualities of Ereshkigal are paradoxical. She's both, as we are too. If we look at everything in life, what we find intolerable is a paradox. Both are true. Now, how do we keep from favoring one over the other and what they would look like together within our own life? So this shamanistic journey of Inanna, we all go through at some point. The tragedy is when we don't know it. The tragedy is when we call it something that it's not, and then we just want to get rid of it, and I don't want to have these feelings, and, I don't want the negative. It's not negative. It's just the opposite. And how do you know you don't want it? You've never been there. Why don't you try it? And then when you start to see and you can compare, then so much more is going to happen. So these psychological, psyche rules, these different stages of psychological development are not easy. They're not supposed to be, because it all demands a sacrifice. And you're going to make the sacrifice truth or dare anyway. So this descent into the underworld, we will continue to explore the initiation rites of women and the anima in men. So till next week, bye-bye.